in this area. We'll give people a couple more minutes just to join and log on before we get started. So for those of you that have just joined, my name's John Slow. I'm a director here at Delta. I've got my colleagues Nigel Timperley and Scott Bryant with me.
Good morning.
Morning.
And we're also delighted to have Sandra Tritton from Tico, a Swiss company that she'll be telling you about. One of the companies that we think is doing something really exciting with energy services. So thanks, Sandra, for joining the call. Okay, we'll just maybe give people one last minute to log on and join before we get started. So for those that have just joined, you should be able to see on the web page the title slide for the presentation for today's webinar. If you do have any technical problems and you've got the audio but not the web, then you can email Jan Hughes. We'll have sent you the registration details and she'll be able to help you. Okay, in the interest of time, I think we should probably get started. So, welcome everyone to today's webinar. We have been working really hard the last few months, or Scott and Nigel in particular have been working really hard on the topic of energy services innovation. And today's webinar is to share some of our interim findings and highlights with you. We're nearing the end of the study. We've learned a lot, we've found out a lot of interesting insights, and today's webinar is to give people who aren't subscribers or aren't yet subscribers to the study some insight into what we're finding. So if we move on to the next slide, and you should see the slides move on your screen. Then just to tell you a little bit about us. So you can see who's you. I've introduced myself already. I'm a founding director of Delta. I'll let Nigel and Scott just say a couple of words. Just say hello to you all.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Nigel Timperley. As you can see there, I'm principal analyst at Delta. Worked in the energy industry for a long time, a long stint at Powergen, then E.ON, including E.ON's distributed energy innovation business. So where I generated this interest in the subject of energy services innovation, and led various innovation change programs along the way.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Scott Bryant. I guess as you see up there, I'm an Australian national. I'm originally a mechanical engineer, and I've been working with John and Nigel for the past few months on this exciting new project. It's great to be here.
And as I mentioned earlier, delighted to have Sandra from Tico, one of the exciting energy service innovative companies we've been looking at. Sandra, if you're on the line, would you like to say hello?
I think Sandra's just been having some technical difficulties with her microphone because says she can hear everything, but she can't speak. So I'm currently trying to sort that out with her.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll get sorted out by the time we come to her. So if we move on to the next slide. So let me just wait for the slide to flick over so you can all follow it. There we are. A very quick 20-second word about Delta for those of you that don't know us. We're a specialist research and consulting company, and we're always on the customer end of the value chain. So looking at the demand side, and increasingly how the demand side interacts with the rest of the energy value chain. From our main office in Edinburgh and our other offices in England, Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands, we work with a lot of utility energy companies across Europe, increasingly some new entrants such as telco insurance companies, and a whole range of product manufacturers, controls companies, technology developers. So please look at our website if you'd like to learn more about what we do. moving on to the next slide now. We'll put in some of the so, we'll spend the bulk of the time on the third point here, looking at what was found to date. But we'll preface that with a bit of background on why we're looking at this topic and how we're going about looking at the topic. We'll have a time for questions and discussion at the end, but it's a large webinar in terms of a large number of you joining, which is great. So if we don't answer your questions, then please do contact us at the end, or we'll come back to you and we can discuss any questions you have offline. Moving on now, I'll tell you a bit about our approach. Well, first of all, why we're looking at this topic. This is probably not new to you, but this is why I think it's an exciting time to be looking at energy services innovation. There's a huge number of changes happening to the energy market. We've grouped them into 5 categories. I'm sure there are other ways to group them. But what we're absolutely certain of, and what we hear from our clients, what we see from investor relations material, what we see going on in the market, is that we're on the cusp of some really interesting disruption in the market. And technology, policy, enablers, but our view is that the real key to exploiting these changes and minimizing threats is around business models. So when we talk about energy service innovation, yes, it involves technology, it involves policy, it involves raising finance in certain ways, but if you can't get the business model right, then you won't succeed. So that's the key focus of what we've been looking at. Move to the next slide. I won't go through these questions, but these are some of the questions our clients have been asking us and really prompted us to take forward this multi-client study. So we started work on this in April, May, earlier in the year. We're getting close to the end. We'll be finishing it in October. And these are some of the questions that we had in mind as we shaped the study and that we keep in mind as we're carrying out our research. So if we move on, and for some clients it's not so much finding ideas. Some of our clients are inundated by ideas and have trouble finding the right ones. This slide, next few slides, we'll just look at how we've gone about this. So this is a diagram that depicts more how we go about our research at Delta rather than this particular study. On this slide, you can see that at the bottom we have research services and people focused on particular technology areas, and maybe some of these, like data analytics, are more service than technology. In the middle, we look across markets and look at how these different technologies are evolving in the markets and how they will develop in the future, through to short-term future and longer-term scenario planning, demand modeling. And at the top, which is where this study fits in, we have our innovation strategy business model work. And looking increasingly, not just the energy vertical, but telco, insurance verticals, as we see a lot of companies from other verticals moving into the energy space, and that's likely to accelerate in the future. Moving on to the next slide, this isn't the first time we've looked at energy services. I think, as it says in the title, it's all about timing. So back in 2009, we did a big piece of work with Accenture looking at what it would take for utilities to succeed in a low-carbon world in 2020. And we highlighted energy services there as one of the key things a traditional utility would need to excel at. And then we followed that up with another study, but I think we're a little bit before our time actually there. But judging by the interest we're getting in our work at the moment, I think hopefully we've got the timing exactly right now. And on the next slide, you can see a bit about our approach. Now, you remember the triangle slide we just looked at? So we've got people immersed in various different technologies, services, aspects of the energy market. So we've sourced on the top left, you can see a long list of innovations. And we've got more than 100 now, or well over 100 in terms of innovations that we found, that we considered for inclusion in this study. We then filtered that to a top 36, discarding a large number of innovations, or at least not focusing on them. And then the real meat of the study is the what we call the Energy Services Innovation Info piece on the top right. So for each of the 36 innovations, and we've drilled down into exactly what they're doing. We've created a framework to analyze those innovations, understood exactly what the business model is. And I think this is what we think makes our approach here different. This is a real bottom-up study, not a top-down study. We see and hear a lot of people talking top-down views about energy services, but we've really rolled up our sleeves here and seen what is actually emerging in the marketplace today. So real-life innovations, innovations that are in the market today or very close to the market, from across Europe, even from one in Nigeria we're looking at, a number in the US. We looked at Asia, but haven't found so much that stood out to us there. So the infobase gives us really deep insight into 36 innovations. And then at the bottom, what we can do, and what we are doing, is using multi-criteria analysis to be able to rank and compare the innovations, pulling out cross-cutting themes, which Nigel will talk about shortly, and then looking at key issues and trends, and also looking at what innovations we haven't seen in the market that we thought we might have seen. So hopefully that gives you an overview of our approach to this. And if we move on, we'll get stuck into looking at 4 case studies that from the top 36 and one other that didn't quite make it. And at this stage, I'll pass over to my colleague Nigel Timperley to carry on the webinar.
Thanks, John. Okay, so I just want to concentrate now on a bit more detail, really, focus on some of the highlights to date, and look at a couple of case studies of who's doing what, and what we can learn from that. What are the trends and themes? Where are the opportunities arising? As John's just been saying, we've looked at an awful lot of innovations, and we're talking a 3-figure number. And then we've sort of said, well, which are the most exciting ones? Which are the ones that we think could be particularly disruptive, based on a set of criteria, which I'll come to. But as you can see, we've sourced them from lots of different places around the world. Lots of flags there, from Farafield as Taiwan, the US, and so on. And then we looked at different types of innovation as well. Different people are innovating. We have found a disproportionate number of startups doing interesting things. Interestingly, a couple of government-led initiatives, a few actually, were very interesting. Telcos are starting to look at the space and circle and say, well, hang on, this is an adjacent market, particularly where smart technologies are involved. Can we step sideways into this space? And then another thing we've done, which John's mentioned there, is we've said, well, look, what are the cross-cutting themes that arise? And we've come up with 11 cross-cutting themes which characterize all of the big 36 in one way or another. So they don't all apply to all 36. 1 or 2 will apply to innovation A, another 2 apply to innovation B, and so on. But you find repeated themes, as I've listed 4 there. So take, for example, creating new marketplaces. There's a lot of very interesting innovations where somebody's looking at the energy services value chain in a novel way and finding a space where not only they can operate, but actually create a new marketplace that is both an opportunity and a threat for an energy company. If they can get involved, indeed, if they could even own the platform, they're in a very strong place. But of course, the risk of a new marketplace is you're not in the marketplace, and there's a risk of disintermediation. So some of these themes play both ways, as both opportunities and threats, in fact. I think that's a good example. Other ones there, new entrants from other sectors we've already talked about. Something for nothing is an interesting one. There's a repeated theme of trying to give customers a pleasant surprise. It has quite a few benefits associated with it. There's this challenge around engaging customers, which is a huge challenge for all energy companies. Something with nothing is a nice way around that. Invariably, what might happen there is that the savings that accrue from some sort of energy efficiency improvement are then used to pay for the innovation itself, creating an impression of something with nothing. And also it can be a very powerful way of, when there's a big technology component or a large asset involved, of deploying volume quickly in order to achieve cost down and cross the marketing chasm. So there's quite a few hidden benefits of doing it that way. Customer independence is something that we're seeing again and again as new players try to empower customers from the traditional passive energy supply model into independent and flexible operators who contribute to the supply chain themselves. And then the other thing we've done is, as John's mentioned, it's so much a bottom-up study, and that's something I would sort of strongly emphasise. Really, I'll show you a sort of series of these one pages in a minute, but the one pages are actually top level. For each of the 36, we said, well, let's have a look at those in a lot of detail. So, because one of the challenges, and again John touched on it, was it's not that energy companies lack deal flow, quite the opposite. They have lots of people knocking on the door because they're big customer databases. But how do you compare? How do you rank? How do you decide this one looks more promising than that one? Well, what we found was that the best way of doing that was to look at them from lots of different points of view, so that ranked in one sequence, there may be, innovation A may be better than B, but from a different point of view, depending on your priorities, B may be better than A. So what we did was came up with 8 dimensions by which we can rank different innovations. I've listed them there on the screen, as you can see, and as you can probably tell, they're tabs on a spreadsheet. So for each of these, there's a very detailed analysis of each one. So we would look, say, at core business tie-in and say, well, how could and does this innovation tie in with, say, a core energy supply business? Is it supportive? Is it detrimental? Is there a bit of both? How could that be played? So there's a lot of very detailed analysis of how each innovation can play within an energy supplier context or upsell from that platform. So that's a very important idea. And then the trends are then lifted up from that as we roll up to a top level view from the bottom level. Okay, so that's kind of like a context slide. And we thought it might be helpful to look at a few examples of some of the innovations we've been looking at. So if I bring up a couple of the 36 we've actually picked out. Just wait for the slide to tick over. So I've brought 4 case studies along, which are, as I've noted here, 3 potential winners and 1 unfortunate loser. So 3 of these made the 36 and 1 didn't. The 3 that did, as we'll see, a Dutch innovation called Energy Sprung, excuse my Dutch, which is mass energy efficiency renovations at domestic scales. Cloud and Heat is a combined heat contracting and IT cloud service provision, with server heat being recycled for heating purposes. Tico, well, I defer to Sandra on this, who's on the call. But Tico, a demand response-based smart solution that's deployed in Switzerland and showing some very promising signs of progress. And then finally, GeoScout was one we really liked, but then promptly it reminded us of the dangers of innovation. It's now the company behind it, Greenfield Energy, is now in administration, which is very disappointing given the progress they appeared to be making initially. And if we just click over, there seems to be a slight time lag on these things, so just bear with me a second. Just have a sip of my tea. So essentially what we've done with each one, I don't propose to read through that lot now, you'll be relieved to hear. But essentially what we've done is said, look, as I said, we've got that deep dive analysis by each topic. I don't imagine you would start looking at this in terms of the deep dive. I think you'd start looking at it in terms of this top-level view, and if there's something of interest, you would then dig into the details. So if you look at this example, energy sprung, we've got there's a strap line on the top right that sort of summarises what it's about, which is, as it says here, a bold project aims to achieve a step change in domestic energy usage in the Netherlands. This is actually a Dutch government spin-out, which started off as a non-profit. I suspect that may change, offsetting the costs of these massive energy efficiency refits against the energy savings that accrue. It's done at such enormous scale that economies of scale kick in. For instance, one of the orders in the Netherlands is for over 110,000 homes. So that the idea is to take a deliberately bold approach to incentivize innovative thinking from builders and manufacturers about how to do renovations more economically. And then it's delivered through the RSL space. The boldness of the project is its biggest strength. As I said there, it catalyzes imaginative thinking, and I think my strong impression is that Energy Sprung will surprise themselves with the progress they've made, and that they're achieving remarkable things in the Netherlands to the point where they're now moving to France and the UK. On the right-hand side of this slide, I'm not quite sure what the little T's are about, but we've got, I've highlighted the 4 themes that we've talked about. There are 7 of us that are blanked out. They're the T's, T for theme. And so essentially, each of those colours there say something for nothing. Behind that, there's an entire analysis of why we came up with a green rating for that. So each of them scored on a RAG basis, a traffic light score, and behind that you'd have an assessment why we think that really scores highly on that particular theme. Underneath that, you've then got a further analysis that says, well, let's look at this innovation from the point of view of each of these different ranking criteria that I talked to you about before. So, for instance, the customer impact on this, evidence appears very strong that it scores highly in terms of customer engagement, customer satisfaction levels, but say delivery and risk, which you can see I've marked as a red, this thing certainly comes with plenty of delivery and risk, delivery risk associated with it. It's bold, it's out there, it's taking a chance, but when it wins big. So that's essentially the approach we've taken. That one, notice the Dutch flag at the top, so each of them colour-coded. I've placed a flag on to show you where it's emanating from. I've got a question here coming in on my screen. I don't know if you can see this, but it's sort of along the lines of how did we come up with the 36, which I suppose is a natural enough question. And as John said, we actually constructed a long list of 100 interesting innovations, then reviewed them by our various dimensions, and naturally innovations that scored high on several themes and dimensions were favoured, and we then filtered for innovations that are either at market now or will be within the next 3 years. So I think that's worth bringing out. That this isn't, although there's a strong strategic element to this, and the trends are a good example of that, this is very commercial. It's driven from you know, real stuff that real people are doing. It isn't a distant horizon gazing piece, though obviously it does naturally have a strategic dimension because we draw the themes. And a final filter was then applied, which was, you know, if we'd come up with a bizarre idea that the 36 best innovations were all based on domestic storage and PV, we wouldn't have put them all in there anyway. Obviously, we want to demonstrate the breadth of ideas that are out there. So there is an element of ensuring a good breadth, both in terms of countries and types of innovation. Okay. If we perhaps move on to the next one, again, there'll be a short lag, I think, on this thing. Yeah, Tico. I wonder if we can bring Sandra in on this one. Are our technical problems fixed, Sandra?
Probably you can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, amazing.
Perhaps if I just say, I mean, you know, again, in terms of my slide, this is the same approach, and we've rated the Tico innovation. But Tico is very much a demand response enabler at residential scale, and it's real and it's happening in Switzerland today. Sandra, do you want to go into a bit more detail?
Yes, so right now what we are doing, we are connecting electrical heating systems, which means like direct heating, night storage, and heat pumps into a network. And with this network, on one side, we are providing to our customers, like to the households, residentials, or even small, medium enterprises, some services in terms of monitoring of the energy consumption, comparison between each other, having the opportunity to save energy with an eco mode to reduce during night times, etc., and with an alarming. And on the other side, we use that network to provide to the national grid in Switzerland so-called balanced energy or ENG services in the secondary and even now in the primary reserves.
And Sandra, how could you say a little bit about the status in terms of when you launched and how you're doing and what you've learned on the way?
Yeah, so what we did, we launched our service in 2012. So 2012 we started the company. Actually, right now we are almost 3 years old. So far we have 6,000 homes connected. We would have loved to be a bit further, but here in Switzerland we work together with the utility. So we never provide a service directly to the household, but we go through suppliers of heating systems or through utilities, and they are offering that service, that monitoring service to their clients as their product, which is related a bit to the market structure here in Switzerland, where we still have monopolies for residential customers. So far, we have, for sure, we have managed quite a few challenges because we were the first aggregator overall in Switzerland to provide balanced services to the grid. So also on the regulatory side, things had to be changed, which took us some time. But now we are looking even into going into other countries within Europe and even abroad. And we are also looking into getting more services into our portfolio, which will also include, for example, photovoltaic systems, batteries, e-cars.
And Sandra, one of your parent companies is Swisscom, the telecoms company. Yep. Does that give you particular advantages, or do you utilize their strengths, or are you quite hands-off in terms of any link with Swisscom?
Yeah. So in that term, Swisscom gives us quite some advantages. And actually, I myself, I worked for that company before. In that new kind of space we created for the demand response network, we saw that the main challenges are on the technical side. So it's mostly on the connectivity of all these small houses to transfer the data in time and to be able to control these heating systems within each second. So the challenges on the technical perspective were really from a telco point of view to be seen. So it's really about getting the best connectivity, the fastest and most reliable one. On the other side, as a telco, we don't have any knowledge about the energy market. So this is why we partnered also together with a utility here in Switzerland called Deltaee, where we then got the information regarding how to trade our balanced energy, etc., on the market. So this is why I think it's the best combination I could think of, because we have not only because it's the company, but also because we have the technical detailed knowledge of Swisscom on all that data transfer, writing the algorithms, optimizing everything until the really last bit. And on the other side, to have the energy knowledge to be able to participate in the market.
Yeah, it's a nice partnership, or nice strengths you're able to use, Sandra. In terms of customers, one of the common frustrations we hear is the challenge in engaging customers with these types of services. And that's one thing I'm impressed by, how you've gone about that, and the engagement that you're getting in the market. Would you be able to say some words about your approach to customers, or what it is that you're doing that you think is working?
Mm-hmm. So on one side, the first challenge we saw is that people have no clue regarding demand response, or what it means to them, or what will happen at their place. So first of all, we needed to do a bit of education, just getting people on the topic of, you have a heating system in your basement and you can do many things with it. Like if you ask anyone on the street, no one knows about their heating system, neither their utility or anything else. So we needed to get people on that track on focusing on electricity and focusing on their consumption. For this, we used the possibility to offer the service now for free in the beginning. So what we are doing, we tell the customer all the installation, all the equipment you get, all the usage of the app and the website and everything is for free. And they can stop the service at any point in time. So even if someone wants to join tomorrow, they can step out the day after, which gives the people the freedom and the openness to say, okay, I just give it a try. I have nothing to lose. And with this focus, we get the people on more in that mood, like, okay, let's try it. And what we see now is that the word of mouth works almost the best. So in terms of marketing or how to increase our network further, we see further partnerships with suppliers or anyone, but we see also that our customer base, which has grown now to 6,000 participants, is the base base we can build on. Because now they start to talk to their neighbor about their heating or about renovation of their house. And then they say, oh, well, but did you also hear about Tico? And this works pretty well. Actually, for that, on the drawback side, it's a bit slow.
Mm-hmm.
John, just
so things can always go faster. Sorry, Scott.
We do have a question actually for Sandra regarding Tico from David Elms. He was just wondering what kind of demand response control is there, I guess, in terms of can Tico reduce the demand, or does the company have to agree to it and do it themselves?
So actually how it works. So we are right now dealing the household, we are mainly dealing in secondary and starting this audit in the primary reserve, which means we are not only doing like a peak shaving or shifting, but we are on duty 7 days a week, 24 hours. So in Switzerland, the product is designed in that way that if you say, I'm going to provide a service for next week, you need to be active Sunday to Sunday, 24 hours. And if you say, I'm going to provide 5 megawatts, for example, with the you need to provide them symmetrical, which means you need to be able every second during that week to shift from 1 megawatt positive to 1 megawatt negative service. Yeah, this is how it's designed in Switzerland.
Thanks very much, Sandra.
Great. Well, Sandra, I think I could ask you many, many more questions, and I'm sure people would be delighted to hear more from you, but in the interest of time, we've got to move on. So, again, thank you so much for joining the webinar and sharing some information and insight about Tico. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Nigel, should we go through the next two?
Yeah. The next. Well, we don't have a speaker for these two, so it'll be much more brief. But next to this one's cloud and heat, which is something we think is very interesting. The novelty here is pure business model play. Is that cloud and heat combines two unrelated customer needs, which is keeping service cool and customers warm. I mean, it's a sort of well-known fact that servers and data centers generate enormous amounts of heat and spend a lot of time cooling them. Why bother? So, as it says here, server access sold to the customer for a one-time fee, includes regular maintenance and server upgrades. There's a lock-in component to this. And then it covers all the running and maintenance costs for the servers and provides the customer with heat for free. So we like the fact it balances different revenue streams, increases income opportunities, and it's a very, very novel idea. It's based in Germany. My understanding is at the moment Cloud and Heat are very much focused on in-country sales. Their sales pitch very much emphasises their German credentials and sort of German engineering credentials. But it's a very good example of something happening outside of the utility sector that's being driven by an innovative startup. I've noted there that creating new marketplaces, that's a good example of that. And again, there's something with nothing thing. You're getting this free heat. And as we've just talked with Tico, that's a very engaging idea for customers. If we can find ways of giving them something for nothing, or in their perception, then it's a very strong way of engaging them and getting them talking to each other about that. Okay, and if we look at my fourth one, which didn't make the cut, hence the analysis didn't get done, as you can see. I remember talking to British Gas about this a while ago, actually. This was a lovely idea, but it serves as a warning that something might look like a silver bullet, but the path to innovation is a rocky one. Greenfield Energy, as was, have now gone into administration. When we first looked at them, first started talking to them, they weren't in administration, so we got kind of halfway, as you can probably tell. They got as far as signing a big deal with Sainsbury's. Essentially, their idea was to exploit supermarkets' needs for both chilling and heating, and balancing the two in a very sophisticated way. They used ground source heat pumps, exploited commercial RHI. Essentially, they guaranteed energy savings without upfront cost. So again, we're seeing some of the repeated themes there: empowering the customer, giving them something for nothing. It's still a very interesting idea. Essentially, what they did was amortize those capital costs with a third-party lender over the life of the asset, which also has this nice benefit of locking in customers again, tied in for the duration of the deal. Unfortunately, in this case, it didn't work out, which rather leads to another natural conclusion, which I've been asked a couple of times, naturally, which is my favourite. Well, I have to say that our view is there is no silver bullet, and essentially what you have to do is you have to rank things by your company's priorities, your strategic priorities, and then build a portfolio that services them. So that one didn't make the 36. The other three did. There are 33 more you can't see, unfortunately, at the moment. But you can see how the thing evolves and how there are patterns in the approaches that innovators are taking.
Great. So keeping an eye on time, Nigel, do you want to say a few words about where we're at and what the next steps are, and then Scott can finish off with ways for people to keep in touch with us and talk with us about this.
Yeah, well, as this slide suggests, we are nearing the conclusion of our project. It's sort of dominated my year, really. We are, as you see there, we've completed the 36 case studies, now working on the cross-cutting themes, also the multi-criteria analysis, that's the thing I was talking to you about, where we rank different innovations by different dimensions and metrics, then pull that together and deliver it to the study clients in October. And then we've got a launch at European Utility Week, 3rd to 5th November, where I'll be on the panel of the Innovation Hub, and actually introducing 2 or 3 of the companies in the study in Vienna, so they can talk about their innovations and get some sort of questions flowing back and forward. So the other thing I mentioned on there, we're also publishing a white paper on the subject. Should be by the end of next week, so keep your eyes open for that.
And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be posting a recording of this on a private YouTube channel for if you want to distribute a link to your colleagues. And then on the right, we'll be promoting the launch through a bigger YouTube channel, as you can see there, and probably other white papers and so on.
Well, there's lots. Sorry, Scott.
Well, thank you all for joining the webinar this morning. If you're more interested in the study itself and how you can potentially get involved and see more of that, please do go to our website as linked to at the top of the slide, or get in touch with us and we can put you in contact with one of ourselves to talk with you further about it. If you'd like to continue the discussion that we've been raising here this morning, please follow us on Twitter at Energy Services Innovation, or join our LinkedIn group. If you search in LinkedIn Deltaee Energy Services Innovation Group, we'd love to continue conversing with you further about your ideas and thoughts on the matter. And as Nigel and John mentioned, next week we'll be bringing out a white paper on the subject, which we'll be happy to send out to you all, and it will also be available on our website.
Thanks, Scott. So as Scott said, we'd be delighted to talk to you about subscribing to the study, but what we also want to build is an energy services innovation community. We don't believe this topic will go away anytime soon. We don't believe this will be a one-off study and we'll stop looking at this topic. So we'd love to talk with you formally if you're interested in our research, informally if you're just interested in keeping in touch and sharing ideas. So lots of ways you can do that. We're trying to be innovative ourselves and move with the times and use different formats for people to engage, that we can engage with people through. And in the old-fashioned formats of meeting at a conference or face-to-face, of phone and email, we'd also love to keep in touch with you as well. So thanks again, in particular to Sandra, for joining the webinar and sharing some insights about Tico. Thanks to all of you for giving up your time. We know everyone has busy days, and giving up time like this doesn't always come easily. So I hope you found it of interest. I hope you learned something. And if you've asked questions that we haven't had time to answer, we'll follow up individually with you. We'll send you all a link to the recording once that's up, and we'll send you all a link to the white paper when it's published. And we look forward to keeping in touch with you, talking with you about this fascinating topic. So thanks for your attention, thanks for joining, and we hope to be speaking with you soon.